I moved into my new apartment on the edge of town. The building was old, the kind that creaks when the wind blows. The walls smelled like damp wood and mildew. My apartment was on the third floor, and I had a view of a small, abandoned playground across the street. I didn't think much of it at first. The landlord warned me about the old wiring, but I didn't care. I liked the idea of cheap rent and a place of my own. The first night was normal. I unpacked my boxes, set up my bed, and tried to ignore the strange scratching sounds coming from the walls. I thought it was just mice or some small animal. I told myself I was being paranoid. Around midnight, I heard a soft whisper coming from the hallway. It sounded like someone calling my name. I froze. My apartment was empty, and I didn't know anyone in the building. I told myself it was my imagination and went to bed. The scratching got louder over the next few nights. It would start just after midnight and continue until dawn. I began to notice small things disappearing from my apartment. A book here, a shirt there. I couldn't explain it. I started locking everything up, but the items still vanished. One night, I woke up to the sound of breathing in my room. It was heavy and slow. I sat up in bed, and the room was empty. I turned on every light, but the feeling of being watched never left me. I tried to talk to my neighbors, but they avoided me. One old woman gave me a weak smile and said, "You'll see. You'll see soon enough." I didn't know what she meant. The playground across the street seemed to get darker at night, like it was absorbing the light. I started hearing the whispers outside my window, faint and distant. They didn't speak words I could understand, just a string of hissing noises that made my skin crawl. Then I noticed the marks on the walls, tiny scratches that weren't there before. They looked like they were forming shapes. Letters maybe. I tried to document them, but they would vanish by the next morning. One night, I woke up to a shadow standing in the corner of my room. I didn't move. It didn't move. It was tall, thin, and impossible to see clearly. I could feel its eyes on me. I reached for my phone to call someone. Anyone. And when I looked back, it was gone. Sleep became impossible. I started hearing voices that weren't there. They would repeat my name over and over, sometimes laughing. The laughter was hollow and high-pitched. I tried to leave the apartment, but the building seemed to change around me. Hallways that I had never noticed before appeared. Doors led to rooms that didn't exist. One night, I found myself in the basement, even though I had no memory of going down there. The air was cold, and the walls were covered in strange symbols drawn in a dark, sticky substance. I ran. I began recording everything with my phone, hoping to prove that I wasn't losing my mind. Every time I played back the recordings, the voices were there, but faint, almost as if they were in a different room, or a different world. One night, the whispers became words. They said, "You should have left." I didn't know who they were talking to, me or someone else. I tried to leave for a weekend, but the streets around my building seemed to loop. No matter which way I turned, I ended up back at the same playground, dark and silent. The scratches on the walls started to form pictures, faces mostly, twisted and grotesque. They seemed to watch me. One morning, I woke up to find my apartment covered in them. Hundreds of faces, some smiling, some screaming. I panicked. I wanted to burn the place down, but something held me back. The faces seemed to whisper, "Stay." I didn't know if I was hallucinating or if something real was happening. I started talking to the shadows, even though I knew it was insane. I asked them to leave, to let me live. Sometimes they would answer. One night, a deep voice whispered from behind me, "It's too late." I spun around, but there was no one there. The air grew colder, and I felt hands brush against my skin. I screamed, but the sound was swallowed by the darkness. I couldn't leave the apartment. Every attempt ended the same way. The streets would twist and turn, leading me back to the same dark playground. It felt like the building itself had trapped me. I began to notice changes in myself. I stopped sleeping for more than a few hours at a time. My reflection in the mirror didn't always match my movements. Sometimes I would look into it, and my face would be smiling. Even when I wasn't, the whispers became louder and more persistent. They started to call me by names I didn't recognize, names that didn't belong to me. They said things about my life, things I had never told anyone. I realized they were learning about me, studying me. One night, I followed the whispers down a hallway that had never been there before. It led to a small room covered in mirrors. In each mirror, I saw a different version of myself, each one older, twisted, and scared. One of them mouthed, "Help me." I tried to ignore it, but the building seemed alive. The floorboards creaked under invisible feet. The walls pulsed as if breathing. I could feel something pressing against me when I walked past certain rooms. One night, I awoke to the sound of fingernails scratching the ceiling. I lay in bed frozen, listening to them move above me. Then I heard the voice again. This time clearer. It said, "You belong here now." The faces on the walls became more detailed. I could see eyes that blinked, mouths that moved. They whispered constantly, sometimes repeating my own thoughts. I started talking to them. I don't know why. I told them I wanted to leave. I told them I didn't belong here. One face, closer to my bed than the others, leaned forward and said, "You always belonged." I tried to leave through the front door. The handle was cold, but the door wouldn't budge. I tried the windows, but they were sealed shut. It was as if the building had decided I couldn't escape. I began to notice strange writing on the floors, symbols that glowed faintly in the dark. They weren't there during the day. I traced them with my finger, and I could feel a pulse, like the building was alive and watching me. One night, I woke to find the shadows gathered in the corner of my room. They were taller than me now. They didn't move like normal shadows. They seemed solid. They whispered in unison, "You can see us now." I tried to run, but my legs wouldn't move. I could feel them stretching toward me, reaching. I screamed, and the sound was swallowed by the walls. I found an old journal hidden in a loose floorboard. The entries were written by someone who had lived here long ago. They spoke of the building consuming its residents, of shadows that fed on fear, of whispers that could drive a person insane. The last entry was just one line. "Once you hear the whispers, there is no leaving." I realized I wasn't imagining it. I was trapped, and whatever haunted this building had been waiting for me. Sleep became a distant memory. My eyes burned. My body ached. I began seeing things that didn't exist. Doors that led to nothing. Windows that looked out on impossible landscapes. One mirror reflected a hallway that wasn't in my apartment. I could see someone walking toward me, but when I turned, there was no one there. The whispers changed again. They laughed. They cried. They screamed. They spoke in dozens of voices at once. One night, I woke up to see a figure sitting on my bed. It was tall, thin, and its face was featureless. It leaned closer, and I could hear it breathing. I tried to scream, but my voice didn't work. It reached out a hand, and I felt an icy chill. Then it whispered, "You will stay with us." I blacked out. When I woke up, I wasn't sure where I was. The apartment felt different. Smaller, darker. The walls seemed to close in. The whispers never stopped. I started to talk to them as if they were old friends. And in a way, I think they were. I began to lose track of time. Days, nights, weeks, I couldn't tell. I couldn't remember the last time I saw sunlight. Then, one night, I saw the first new face on the walls in months. It was my face, twisted, screaming, eyes wide with terror. The whispers laughed. "You see now," they said. "You see why we stay." I realized I was becoming like them. Part of the building, part of the shadows, part of the whispers. I wanted to fight, but I didn't have the strength. I started to notice new residents moving in. Young people, excited to live on the cheap edge of town. They would smile and wave when I tried to talk to them, but they never stayed long. They left, terrified. Or sometimes, not at all. The building welcomed them the same way it welcomed me. It was patient. It waited. It listened. And it fed on fear. Slowly. Methodically. I don't know how long I've been here now. I stopped keeping track. The mirrors show me every version of myself I have been. Some faces smile. Some scream. Some whisper. I try not to look. But I can't stop. The whispers never end. Sometimes they sound like my own voice. Sometimes they sound like something older. Something darker. I know now that I will never leave. I am part of the building. Part of the shadows. Part of the whispers. And soon, someone else will move in. And they will hear us too. The whispers grew louder each night. I could hear them even when the lights were on. They no longer stayed in the corners. They moved through the walls, the floor, the ceiling. I began seeing figures in every reflective surface. Not just my reflection, but dozens of them. All staring, all waiting. They didn't blink. They didn't move. Except sometimes to lean closer. To whisper something I couldn't understand. One night, I decided to follow the whispers. I left my apartment and walked down the hallway that seemed to stretch endlessly. Doors appeared and disappeared as I walked. Some led to empty rooms. Others led to rooms filled with people who didn't exist. Their eyes were blank. They stared at me. One of them whispered my name. I turned, but it vanished. The building seemed to breathe. The walls pulsed. I could feel it in my chest. Like the structure itself was alive. The shadows moved with intent now. They reached for me when I walked past. I could feel their fingers brush my skin. Cold and heavy. I tried to run. But every hallway led me back to the same room. The mirrors. The mirrors where I saw every version of myself. Some screaming. Some smiling. Some missing parts of their bodies. I realized the building wasn't just haunted. It was a predator. It consumed fear. And then it consumed the people. The whispers weren't just voices. They were invitations. They told the truth in riddles. The longer I stayed, the more it owned me. I tried to leave. I opened doors. I climbed stairs. I tried windows. Nothing worked. The streets outside were gone. The world outside was gone. One mirror reflected something different. Not me. Something darker. It had no face. No eyes. Just a black void. It raised a hand. And I felt a cold pull in my chest. I screamed. But no sound came out. The shadows gathered around me. They whispered in unison. A single phrase repeated over and over. Join us. I felt my body weaken. My vision blurred. The room twisted. The mirrors bending into impossible angles. I saw other faces appear on the walls. Faces of people who had tried to leave. Faces of those who had laughed at warnings. Their eyes were hollow. Their mouths open in silent screams. The whispers told me they were still alive. But only barely. They were trapped inside the building. Part of it now. I understood then that if I didn't join, I would be next. I felt my body start to change. My limbs grew heavy. My skin felt cold. My reflection no longer moved with me. I tried to fight it. But the shadows were inside me now. They whispered promises, temptations, threats. I could feel myself slipping, merging with the building, becoming part of its hunger. I wanted to scream, to fight, but it was useless. The walls pressed closer. The mirrors multiplied. Then I saw her, the old neighbor. She stood in one of the mirrors, smiling. She held a key. You can leave, she said. But you must give something in return. I reached for her, desperate. But the reflection twisted. The key turned into a hand. Black, clawed. The whispers laughed. I understood then. There was no leaving. The building always wins. The shadows pulled me toward the mirrors. My reflection screamed as I did. My body became heavy, fluid, stretching. I felt myself pulled into the glass. The whispers roared now. Dozens of voices, all around me. I screamed again. but my voice was gone. The last thing I saw was the mirrors shattering into 1,000 pieces, each fragment reflecting a version of me, trapped forever. I don't know how long I have been here. I can hear new voices outside my room. New whispers, faint and curious. Someone is moving in soon. They will hear us. They will see the walls. They will see the faces, and I will watch. I am part of the building now, part of the shadows, part of the whispers, and I will wait. The building hungers, the whispers call, and the next tenant will hear us. A new family moved into the building a few months later. I watched from the shadows. I could see them through the mirrors, through the walls, through the cracks. They were happy at first. They laughed. They argued. They unpacked boxes. They didn't notice the small things that moved. The faint scratches appearing on the walls. The whispers waited, patient. The shadows waited, patient. The building waited. The mother saw the first scratch. She thought it was from a nail or a pet. The father ignored it. The children didn't notice. That night, the whispers started. Faint at first, almost polite. Calling names, telling secrets. The family thought it was the wind, the pipes, the building settling. But I knew, I always know. The scratching grew. The shadows moved. Faces began appearing on the walls. Faint at first, then darker, twisted. The mother tried to wipe them away, but they returned. The father tried to cover them with paint, but the paint peeled back as if the walls themselves rejected it. I whispered through the cracks, guiding them, teasing them, letting the fear build. The children heard the voices first. They giggled at first, thinking it was a game. Then the voices became clearer, calling their names, telling them to do things they shouldn't. The mother noticed the change. She tried to protect them. She yelled. She screamed. But the building did not care. The shadows pressed closer, always waiting, always hungry. One night, the family tried to leave. The doors wouldn't open. The streets outside twisted. The playground across the street glowed faintly, inviting them to return. No matter which way they ran, they ended up back in the building. In the mirrors, in the whispers. I watched them panic. I watched the fear grow. It was beautiful. The scratches became faces. The whispers became voices. The walls began to pulse like a living thing. I moved closer, watching the transformation begin. The father tried to fight. The mother tried to cry. But the building swallowed them. Their fear fed it. Their screams echoed through the halls, joining the chorus of the trapped. I had been here long enough to understand. The building does not kill. It consumes. It waits. It trains. It grows stronger with each tenant. Each new resident becomes part of it. Each whisper becomes louder. Each shadow more solid. And I, too, am a part of it now. I guide the next ones, watching them slowly realize there is no escape. The new tenants scream. They fight. They cry. I whisper their names. I show them the faces on the walls. I show them the mirrors. I let the shadows stretch and reach. The building hungers. It always hungers. And when they finally give in, when they finally join, they become part of the cycle. They join the whispers. They join the shadows. They join me. And then, another family moves in. Another young person, excited to live on the cheap edge of town. Another soul curious enough to hear the whispers, to see the shadows, to notice the faces on the walls. They will not leave. They will stay. And I will wait, patient, watching, whispering, smiling, because the building always wins. The building always feeds, and the cycle never ends. I am here. The shadows are here. The whispers are here, waiting, watching, listening. And soon, someone new will hear us.